In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to bring all of our elements together to create the final atmosphere of our scene. All right, so at this point, we're kind of at the tweaking stage. We've brought in our particle system. We've got this dust kind of floating around in the cave. You can make your adjustments to that you need. There is one final adjustment that I would want to make to the particle system, and that is the dust just kind of appearing into the scene. We don't want it to just pop. We want it to fade in. And then we would also want to tweak maybe the lighting a little bit. Talk about doing a final build on that lighting and just kind of getting this to look exactly the way that we would want. So really quickly, let's open up our dust particle. And we had talked about needing it to fade in. Now, as of right now, we are set on our color over life. We are set to where it pops in, where it's opaque. So whenever that each particle is birthed, it's very apparent. So what we want to do is we want to add another point in here. So to add another point, we'll simply select that module. We'll come over here to our details under color. And let's make sure that we go to the alpha portion of this. So we're under alpha over life. We have point 0 and we have point 1. Let's add another point to that. And so now if I take a look at point 2, if I set the in value to 0 and then its out value to 0, let's go ahead and let's set this up right. The first point should be a value or time at 0. But then our out value, which is the value of the color, we want that to be at 0. We want it to start out as black. Okay. Then the second point, we want it to be at a value. Let's do 0.5 on this. So what is the time on this? So 0 to 1. At the midpoint, we want it to be at an out value of 1, meaning its color is set to 1. Then we're going to go to the third point. The in value, which is time, is going to be set to 1. And then the out value is going to be set to 0. So what we should get is a curve that looks like this. We should get a curve that starts at 0, and then it fades in. Notice how we're going from black to gray. We go up to white, it's fully opaque, and then it starts to fade out. Now, we can come in here, we can select these points on our curve editor, and we can change the curve of those. Notice how this is fading in and out at a constant rate. Let's say we wanted to make this a little bit smoother. Select this point right here. Go ahead and set it to auto. Notice what happens. We get this curve on the outside edge here. Let's go ahead and take this one. Let's set that one to auto. And we'll do the same thing here. Set it to auto. Okay. So now we get this nice smooth line here. Now if I really wanted to, I could come in and I could start to play around with the tangents on my own. So I can actually left click on the tangents. We need to make sure we hold down control, and that's going to change it to a user tangent. Now I can actually play with the handles and play with that curve on that. So control, let's go ahead and take that. And then if we go ahead and save that, watch what happens to our particles. Notice that there's nothing that's popping in and out. Just watch those particles fade in, and then they just kind of fade out. So no weird popping or anything like that. If you want to see that a little bit better, you can take your initial size right in here, set it up to something like 10, and just watch that. Notice how they faded in, how they're fading out. Okay, just a quick touch-up. All right, so now that we're finished with that particle system, let's go ahead and do some tweaking to the lighting. Let's say that we wanted to make this something like an evening type scene. Or even a night scene. This can be controlled through that directional light that we have here. Now, the way this is set up in the default scene, where we have this sky sphere, it's all controlled from this light source that's initially in there. So if we come in and let's say we rotate it, let's say F on the keyboard with it selected, and then let's kind of navigate up to it. You'll notice the direction that the arrow is pointing. Okay, it's pointing down. Now, this is going to be the direction of the sun. If we went ahead and we started to point this arrow to where it's kind of straight on, like this, notice how the sun, it looks a little bit different. We're starting to get something that looks kind of like a sunset type of lighting on the cave. But you'll notice that the sky isn't really updating to that. Now, in order for the sky to update, we need to select the sky. So just select right up in here, or go to your scene outliner and click on BP Sky Sphere. Then what you can do is you can scroll down, and in the default rollout, you have this refresh material. Left click on that, and notice what it does to our sky. Okay, so now we get this evening scene. So we get a little bit of light coming in, a little bit of evening. Okay, looks pretty good. Now we can continue to adjust that. So if you wanted to make it something like a night scene, you could go ahead and point that arrow straight up into the air, and then you'll get a different look altogether. So if we come in and we say, all right, let's do something like this, see what that looks like. Remember, go ahead and select your sky sphere, refresh material. Now you've got a night scene there. All right, so now that we have talked about changing up the lighting on that, we've got our particle systems, we've got our ambient sound in here, we've created a little bit of an atmosphere. So hopefully from the last volume, you've got kind of a cave that's been kind of strewn apart. You've got books on the ground, you've got crates all over the place, you've got tables maybe flipped over, a chair knocked over, equipment just all over the place, and maybe you've got like that crate or some barrels knocked over, or this crate here with the open lid, and maybe there was something supposed to be in there. Create that scene that looks like somebody was searching for something very valuable, and they were having a really hard time trying to find it. So now at the final, you need to make sure that you bake your lighting. So let's go ahead and bake lighting only. But before we do that, let's go ahead and set our quality up a little bit higher, and let's go ahead and say build lighting only. Give that just a little bit of time, get that to build out, and then in the next lesson we're going to talk about our final assignment for this volume.